What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris, man. We are here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is March 4th, 2022. Got a special guest that's coming on in the building. Her name is Patty Medina. She is an associate athletic director at Hartford Community College. She's been an adjunct professor. She's also a basketball coach for the Junior Wizards. This is a woman that's very accomplished. Got her undergrad at San Diego State University, got her master's and national, and now is working on a doctorate. So, definitely going to talk to her about her why into sports, her choosing of college, but also get to know her a little bit outside of her job occupation. So, with that being said, I'm looking forward to seeing and talking to Patty and getting to know her a little bit. Absolutely. And she will be on with us in just a few moments. All right, and here we go. And without any further ado, I'm bringing to you Miss Patty Medina. Hey, good morning.
Hi.
How you
How's it
doing?
going? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just want to say thank you for hopping on my podcast. I really do appreciate it. And
Yeah, no problem.
obviously, you look amazing. I have to say
Thank
that
you.
right off the bat, no doubt, no doubt. And I want to ask you, how are you and your family doing during these pandemic times?
We're good. We're good. The mask mandate was lifted today for on campus, so we don't have to wear a mask indoors. So that's refreshing and a sign of good things to come. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, absolutely. Yeah, we just got our mask mandate lifted here in Minnesota about a week or two ago. So yeah, I
Okay.
totally understand that. Definitely
Yeah.
understand that. So let me give you a little background to why I wanted to reach out and talk to you, and then before I start peppering you with questions. Um,
Okay.
so I saw that you was involved in sports, and I saw that you were an adjunct professor before. I saw that you coached the Junior Wizards, and you also an athletic director there at Hartford Community College. So you're involved with sports, and it's kind of like it's not like a SID, but it's kind of like you're a director, you over all the sports and pretty much
Right.
everything. So me being a sports reporter, I love connecting with people and learning about different roles and different jobs, and how they got into sports, their story. So it was a no-brainer to hit you up and talk to you and be able to vibe with you and see if I could learn a little something, something.
Okay.
So without any further ado, I'm just gonna get into it. Take me back, um, all the way back. When you was growing up, did you have any aspirations or inspirations, and what gravitated you towards a career in sports?
Well, I was born in Mexico. So I was born in Mexico and I grew up around soccer and baseball. And so we used to play baseball with like a stick and rocks and, just out in the street, like
Right.
having, the old school childhood of being outside. And so
Yeah.
just I grew up around a lot of uncles and yeah, just a lot of uncles. My mom is a sibling of 12 and
Wow.
my dad is one of 9, and so we had a lot of uncles growing up, and so we would ride horses, we would play out in the street and like be out in the river. So like I lived in Mexico until I was about 9, and then when around 9 we ended up coming to the United States, and so then I we ended up in San Diego, and so I grew up in San Diego, and then I kept playing soccer, and so I just enjoyed sports, so I played soccer, and then in 6th grade, one of my neighbors was like, hey, they're starting, a basketball team at our school. You
Right.
should join. I'm like, basketball, like I didn't know what basketball was. I had never seen it on TV. Like I knew there was basketball rims in like my communities, but I didn't know, the extent of the sport. And so
Right.
she's like, it's kind of like soccer, but you don't get to use your feet. And I'm like, all right. So I came out. It was like sixth grade. Ended up being like the team MVP and defensive player and things like that.
Okay.
And so yeah, so it was fun. It was the main thing for me. It was fun. The camaraderie. The coaches that we played under were awesome, and I just fell in love with the game, and I ended up playing basketball from then on. I didn't play on a team. I didn't grow up around like AU club and all that. Like I didn't know about any of that until
Right.
later in life. So, we didn't have money to play in leagues. My parents didn't have money to play in leagues. So
I
I
feel
played
that.
in sixth grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Played in sixth grade. I didn't play again until middle school, like the middle school league, and then all through high school. And so again, like I fell in love with it all over again, and I enjoyed the camaraderie, the sisterhood, like just traveling together, doing things as a team. And so then, as I mentioned, like I was born in Mexico, so I didn't have a social security card, so I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to college and like play in college. So I hadn't
Wow.
applied. I hadn't applied for any schools or anything like that because I wasn't able to. And then April of my senior year, which if you know college sports and college missions, like that's late, April of my senior year. So April of my senior year, I got my social security card. And so then I was like, okay, well, where can I go? And at the time, Dominican University had reached out about me going there academically. And I was like, okay, well, I can go there and then, walk on the team. And so ended up going there, walked on the team. And then I decided to get a car. And so I decided to become an adult and started working. And one thing led to another. There was tuition raises. And so I ended up coming back to San Diego.
Yeah.
And attending San Diego State because San Diego State was covered with all my state funds, all my grants and everything. So I didn't have to come out of the pocket for a state school. But obviously I wasn't good enough to play on the San Diego State team. So I ended up talking to my former high school coach, and he was like, hey, well, I need a coach, for middle school.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Like, and I'm 18, 19 years old at the time, 18 at the time. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I was working at like 24-hour fitness. I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll help out, I'll help coach. So again, like I fell in love with it. I was actually talking to one of my players from that first team ever yesterday.
Wow.
And we were talking because I've been in her wedding. I was in her wedding. Like, I'm very close to her and her family. And we were talking about it yesterday, how I was like 18 years old, coaching these like 14, 15-year-olds, and how in retrospect, like they kept me out of trouble, but then I also kept them out of trouble, because we were both so young and like we invested so much time into the sport. So again, like I fell in love with the leadership aspect. And I just enjoyed being a mentor. I enjoyed being a mentor. And so I ended up coaching high school. I was at the middle school, high school level for 6 years. And then one of the players that went through our high school program ended up going to a JUCO, and she was like, hey, like we need some practice players and like scorekeepers, like you should come. I told my coach about you. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I went, like my first college career, my college coaching job was actually being like a practice player and a scorekeeper. And and it wasn't paid, it was volunteer. So I ended up showing up to all the practices and everything. And so the coach was like, well, hey, like you're here more than my actual assistant coaches, like I should just pay you a stipend. And so he ended up paying me a stipend. And then another coach was like, hey, you're awesome. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm volunteering. He was like, well, I'll put you on staff. So then one thing led to another, work ethic, people just acknowledging the work ethic. And it's true what they say, like the more you do when you're not getting paid, the more value you'll bring to it when you do get paid, So it's like I was going above and beyond on volunteer, no pay. And then once I got paid, it was like, okay, well, they already know what I'm doing, regardless. So yeah, so I ended up staying at the JUCO level for about another 6 years. So then that was a total of 12 years. And then I ended up same thing, work ethic, going to practices, reaching out, networking. So I was, one of the coaches, he's at University of Laverne now, but he was at Bethesda University, and he was recruiting a lot of our JUCO players, and a lot of those JUCO players that he was recruiting were girls. I had the opportunity to coach them in middle school and then in high school, and then by the time they were going to college, I was at the JUCO level, so they played for me through the JUCO level as well.
Wow. Okay.
So I had them, so I had them from 7th grade all the way to sophomore year in the college. And so when he was recruiting them as sophomores, they were like, yeah, we all played for Coach Fatty. We all played for Coach Fatty. So he's like, oh, I got to meet Coach Fatty. So I ended up meeting him. And he was just like, yo, like, whatever you guys did, like, these girls are great defensive players, And he was like, yeah, and if I ever leave, like, I'm going to give you my job. And I'm like, whatever. Like, because I've heard other people say that, like, hey, when I leave, I'm going to pass my job on to the assistant. But ultimately, like, they don't really have the final say because it comes down to the athletic directors and whoever, right? And so I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, you're not going to give me that job. So then sure enough, the following year, he got the job at the University of Antelope Valley in California. And he called me and he was like, and I had just come back from like spring break. So I had like dreads in my hair. And, like, and so then he was like, yo, like, you got to come in for an interview. And I'm like, shoot, I got, I'm like, I'm definitely not looking like myself, but I looking like vacation self, And so he was like, don't worry about it. You already got the job. Just go, just go. Don't worry about it. You pretty much got the job. They just want to meet you and do the logistics part.
Right.
So I go, I interview, and I tell him, I'm like, hey, I just got back. It's my 30th birthday. It was my 30th birthday. We had gone, I forgot where, I think we went to Miami or something. And so I had my hair in like, in like box braids and dreads. And
yeah, you was lit.
Yeah. So then we interviewed, and he ended up giving me the job, and I was there for 2 years. It was probably the most difficult job I've ever had, just because it was I didn't know, I didn't know a lot that goes on behind the scenes as far as a head coach. And then I didn't know a lot of the things that you're supposed to ask when you take on a head coaching job. So like, I didn't know about accreditation, I didn't know about schools being sanctioned for like Cal grants and school grants. And so I got into this school thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to do great. And then come to find out, like, there's no dorms, there's no housing, there's no, the school's only accredited through like the Christian institution. So if the girls try to transfer, if the girls wanted to transfer, they can't transfer to a regular school. They have to be a Christian school. And so it was just a lot that, like, as a young coach, I just jumped on the opportunity. I was like, you know what, I'm going to make it work somehow, some way. But in retrospect, like, these are the questions that I would have asked. And I tell coaches all the time, like, you have to find out, are they accredited? Like, what is their housing situation? Or what is their state funding? Like, these are things that now in retrospect, I know to ask. Like, and people ask me all the time, like, do you miss coaching? And I'm like, I don't, but if I were to take a job, like, it'd have to line up with, everything that I've struggled with. Like, it's going to have to be a perfect situation for me to get back into coaching. And so, so I ended up coaching at Bethesda for 2 years. And then I had the opportunity to start Westcliff University. I was able to start the program there from scratch. So when I left, when I was at Bethesda, my AD came to me and he was like, hey, we might lose our accreditation. Like, it might be a good idea for you to like jump ship before we sink, And so I'm like,
get up out of here.
And I have the utmost respect for him, because ADs won't tell you that. Some ADs won't tell you that. Some ADs will just be like, oh, hey, we're done. Like, the program's cut,
Right.
So he actually gave me the heads up. He was like, yeah. And so he called the athletic director at the other school, and he was like, yo, like, Patty, she can start your program. She can take her recruits with her. She already has a schedule. So I went to Westcliff University, and I was there with our athletic director at the time, Paul Cook, who was very helpful, very like, understood that, hey, we're not going to build a program in a year. It's going to take a few years to build it from scratch. And so, so I ended up building that program. We played a few D1 schools, and then the athletic director got sick and went on like medical leave, and so ended up retiring. And so then as it happens in this field, we had a new athletic director, and the new athletic director came in and wanted to clean house and bring in his own people, right? So he brought in he let me go, and then brought in one of his high school buddies that had no college experience, all that. But all my recruits ended up staying, so he did pretty well. Granted, that's one thing for me. I take pride in any school that I leave, I want them to do better. I want them to do it as good, if not better, than when I was there, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still a reflection of your work. So when they do well, it's like, oh, hey, Patty left that program, well, in a good standing. So Westcliff, they still have, even to this day, they have 3 of my recruits, and 2 of my recruits, and then they actually just made it the first time to the NAIA finals. So it's still heartwarming to say, hey, I started that program from scratch, even if they erased everything that I did from the website and everything, because at the time we didn't have Presto and none of that. Right. So none of that is up there. But yeah, they made it to NAIA finals, and the main point guard is one of my former players and one of my recruits. So they did good. So yeah, this late, I was in a conference yesterday. I was in a podcast yesterday.
What the hell happened?
No, it did that yesterday. I was doing a podcast interview yesterday, and I'm waving my arms, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trying to turn the light on." but yeah. So then I ended up. I was let go at Westcliff, and then I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to coach. I was already thinking do I want to coach? And so that's when I started my nonprofit. And I started doing the basketball camps and just going around the US. And I was super depressed running these camps. I'm talking about mental health advocacy with these students. And I'm in the backside, I'm super depressed because I'm unemployed. I didn't know what I was going to do, but a friend of mine who's a pastor, he was like, look, the more you pour into others, the more you fulfill yourself. So he was during the hardest times, he was seek out helping others, because it'll make you feel better. Even though you're going through stuff, you'll start to see that other people have it worse,
Right.
So started my nonprofit, and then I ended up getting invited to a camp, to run a camp in San Antonio, Texas. So I go to San Antonio, Texas, and I'm helping, I'm supposed to be a guest speaker at this camp. So I'm supposed to be a guest speaker. And I end up being one of the coaches at the camp, because I saw that there was a need. And I was like, well, if they need coaches, and I'm here, I'm going to help out, even though I'm just supposed to be guest speaking. So ended up helping out with the camp. And so then the coach comes up to me, and he was like, hey, who are you? I was like, oh yeah, I'm Patty Medina. I'm supposed to be guest speaking. He was like, oh, I thought you were one of the coaches. He was like, you didn't have to help. I'm like, I know, but there was a station with no coach. I'm not just gonna stand here and watch, Right. And so then he was like, so where do you coach? And so we ended up talking. And I told him that, I was unemployed, and at the time, I didn't have any offers. And this was June. And for coaching, that's late in the game, right? June, July. That's late in the game. So it was June, July. And he was like, oh, well, our head coach just resigned because he got a D1 job, and the assistant's going to be the interim head coach, and she's going to need an assistant. He was like, would you be willing to move to San Antonio? So I was like, you know what? At this point, I don't have anything else lined up.
Hell yeah, I'm willing to move.
I've always wanted to move. Yeah, I've always wanted to move.
Right.
Why not? So I ended up moving to San Antonio. I was there for a year, and then COVID hit right before nationals. So COVID hit, and she was, like I said, she was the interim head coach, and she wanted to move up, continue moving up. So she just got a NCAA D3 job, and I was like, oh, I don't want to keep bouncing around, with coaching. And so I started a Daniel fast at the time. I started a Daniel fast at the beginning of the year. And I was just like, all right, Lord, if I'm supposed to step away from coaching, please present me with an opportunity that I can't, decline. And so sure enough, out the blue, I get this message from someone on LinkedIn, and they're like, hey, because I had switched it open to opportunities or open to work on LinkedIn.
Right.
And he messaged me, and he was like, hey, I've been following you for a few years. He's like, I see that you're open to work. There's a job opportunity at Bowie State, but it's not in coaching. And I was just like, okay, great, because that's exactly what like I was actually trying to figure out, like if I'm gonna keep moving forward in coaching, or if I'm gonna, I've been asking God for a sign as to whether to keep coaching or to, transition out of it. Right. And I'm assuming this is my sign because I'm on my second day of my fast. And he was like, no, this is awesome. So he was like, hey, well, can you fly out here and interview? So this was like February of what, 2019. Yeah, 2019, right? So February 2019, I fly out here, and we're still in season. So we're finishing season, and I fly out here to DC for what is it, Martin Luther King weekend. And so my son and I like spent the 4 or 5 days out here, and then I interviewed that following Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Everything went great. They offered me the job like on site. I signed like a potential contract because there was a new position. They hadn't had anyone in that position. So they were going to like they had a makeshift contract, but they were going to actually like have a final contract. Right. And so they're like, okay, just sign this one and we'll have like the official contract for you. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I go back and I put in my 2 weeks because I'm like, okay, I already took this job. I put in my 2 weeks. And I talked to my AD in Texas, and I was like, hey, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. And he was like, honestly, with COVID, he was like, I think we're done. So he was like, if you want, he was like, you can be finished now. He was like, I'll just pay you out through the end of the month. Wow. Because it was like, it was like mid-February. And so I was going to start relocating March 6th. And March 6th is when COVID actually happened. Like I remember that date because I had just gotten to Maryland. I had just relocated to Maryland. Like my car was packed, everything was ready. And I get there and they're like, hey, we're in a state of emergency. Everybody go home. I remember I got on a flight for like $35 from Maryland to
$35.
$35 were the COVID prices because everybody was like going on the plane. So I spent $35 from here to San Diego. Okay. And so fast forward, spent through COVID, and then it got to a point where I was like calling Bowie and I was like, hey, like what's gonna happen? Like, am I gonna have a job when I get back? And they're like, honestly, like everything's frozen. Like we can't hire anyone full time, but we can hire you as an adjunct. We can hire you as a part-time professor, but we can't hire anyone full time. So I'm like, okay, well, I was like, as long as you know that like I'm gonna have to find a job. And they're like, yeah, no, like do what you need to do. And so I ended up applying and I got the job at Mount Carmel where I was the assistant athletic director there. And so I was there for 1.5 years. And then I wasn't planning on leaving. Actually, I wasn't like thinking even of applying and like, going anywhere else. But a friend of mine was like, hey, Hartford Community College is looking for an AD. And I told him, I was like, oh, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. I've only been an AD for 1.5 years. He's like, yeah, but you've coached for 16. He was like, the ins and outs of everything. And so he was like, you're more than ready. He was like, just apply, just apply. And so I'm like, all right, you're right. I don't lose anything with applying. So I ended up applying. Right. And then next thing you know, had a phone interview, then had a Zoom interview, and then in-person interview. And then I got the job offer in November of last year, but I didn't actually get hired on because of COVID. Everything's like super slow with like background checks. And so I got the job offer in November, but I didn't get hired on until January. So, and here I am. This is my almost 2 months of being here. So
that's a hell of a story, Patty. It really is. I love it.
It's a mouthful.
If you need to take a sip of water or something, it's all good. I feel it. You know what I mean? But no, that's pretty cool. How you got into it, your why you wanted to start coaching, as you said, be a mentor to young ladies. And I'm sure that a lot of those young ladies you keep in touch with, as you said, you went to a wedding of one of them, which is pretty dope. The fact that you've been coaching.
I was in her wedding. I was actually a bridesmaid.
Oh, you was a bridesmaid. Oh, you was in the wedding. Okay, that's even better.
That was like the dopest part. Yeah.
That's pretty dope right there. That's what's up. So yeah, I love that. I love that answer. Now I want to ask you about going to San Diego State University. That's where you got your undergrad at. And I know that you went on to, I believe, National University to get your master's, and You're currently probably pursuing a doctorate, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. But I want to know because obviously I have an affinity for San Diego. That's where I grew up too.
Everybody does.
You know what I mean? So I want to know, were there any other schools that could have persuaded you from going to San Diego State University?
Well, the funny thing is, so as I mentioned to you, like I didn't have a social security card, so I had applied to the schools like really, really late. And I applied like April of, like I mentioned to you, April of my senior year.
Yeah.
And the only response I had gotten back was from Dominican University. And so San Diego State was already like a go-to, but I really wanted to get out of the house. Like I wanted to get out of San Diego. And so San Diego State was always like my fallback. But um, I had applied to UNLV. I really wanted to go to UNLV. And then I had applied to Boston College. And so Boston
Okay.
College and Bernard University in New York. So I always wanted to be in the East Coast. And it's funny that I'm here now because I love it. But yeah, I wanted, like I said, San Diego State was never like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to San Diego State. It was just one of those like, okay, well, it's free. I can go there and I don't have to have, a lot of student loans, whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of people really, really think like, oh, San Diego is awesome. I'm gonna tell you right now, gas is $5.86. That's all I have to say. When people are like, "Oh, do you miss San Diego?" I'm like, "Gas is $5.86."
Yeah, it's expensive as hell out there. I recently went out there for June. I had an interview with the Tribune, and
Okay.
I didn't end up getting that job, but I did go out there. They flew me out there, put me up in the hotel. Yeah, gas at that time of last June was 470 something. So I was
Yeah.
like, damn, this is
Yeah.
quite expensive. And I went actually back out to California in October to a sports career fair because I was
Okay.
also looking to break into this industry of sports, and I was currently doing lottery. So I was working overnight for the lottery, grinding, doing what I'm doing, and then I was like, okay, I want to kind of break in. So I ended up just going out to Los Angeles, getting some business cards together, getting my resume together, put up my own money, and went to the Staples Center, passed them out. Didn't get any calls that time, but I was like, okay, cool. But then I ended up getting a call from like 5 different people, and I had 5 different offers. And I chose this one out here in Minnesota because this one was paying the most, and it allowed me to be the sports reporter that I wanted to be. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what's up. So, but I totally understand what you're talking about because it's cool to visit San Diego, man. Like I'm good with the visiting part,
Mhm.
go to the beach and because I still got family back in California, but I don't know about living there. Living there, that's it's quite expensive. This Midwest East Coast thing is doing a hell of a lot better. Rent over here
Yeah.
is great. So you know what I mean? So I totally
Yeah.
understand.
No, I tell my dad all the time because he's like, "Are you coming back?" And I'm like, "Dad," because he rents out his garage. He like made his garage into like a studio.
Okay.
And I was like, "Dad, I pay for a 2-bedroom apartment. What you charge for your garage?" And he was just like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." So
Mm-hmm.
I don't miss it. And I get to travel and it's not expensive. And like, there's a bunch of airlines here that like, you can go to California on a round trip for like 250, so it's
Right.
not bad. It's
Yeah.
not like where you're at where it's only one airport. Like here we have, I can fly out of Philly, I can fly out of Baltimore, I can fly out of DC, I can fly out of Virginia,
Yeah.
even Jersey. So it's just whichever one is the least expensive, like, you can fly out. So I've flown back home. When I went in December, it was like 180 round trip. So
Okay. Okay. I like
yeah.
that. Yeah. We actually don't, Patty, we don't even have an airport in the city.
Yeah,
We
I
yeah,
figured it was something like that.
yeah, we ain't even got an airport here, because I'm in Marshall, Minnesota. So it's an hour northwest of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is the nearest
Okay.
airport. And it's 2 hours southwest of Minneapolis, where
Okay.
obviously they got an airport out there too. So yeah, we don't even have an airport in the city. It's how small this is, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I was like, damn. That's the first thing I noticed, that the population was 11,000, and the fact that we didn't have an airport in the city. Those are the first two things I noticed. I want to
Yeah.
ask you some favorite things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask you
Okay.
some favorite questions, and you just give me a 411 off the rip, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. Favorite music genre.
R&B.
Okay, so all right, you riding down the streets of Baltimore, and I've been in Baltimore. And the streets is crazy. Ain't no doubt about it.
Mhm.
When you turn on your radio, what is that song that comes on that you start singing to, like to the top of your lungs?
I'm a big PJ Morton fan. I love like indie R&B. So a lot of the um, the people that are barely coming up, and
Yeah.
so um, yeah, I've been on my Al Green tip lately. Like
Wow. Taking it back.
I
Al
yeah, I
Green.
heard a
Okay.
song. I heard a song recently on like I had a playlist and I heard a song and I was like, I haven't heard this song. It was Al Green and then I ended up getting on an Al Green playlist and I've been listening to that. But yeah, I just love all R&B. Um, like one of my favorite music festivals that I go to is called Soul Bloom. It's in Sacramento, California, and they bring out a lot of like the old school, not old school, but the new school R&B, like still underground.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely R&B
Okay.
is my go-to.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I heard about that contest, and yeah, I love me some Al Green too. He got a couple of hits with Anthony Hamilton that I really like.
That's
Uh,
another one of my favorites is Anthony Hamilton. Yeah,
yes,
the music.
indeed.
I was listening to that verses and music so shout and Anthony Hamilton verses, and
Hmm.
Anthony Hamilton always puts on a show, and I think I'm a big music social fan too. But with the
Yep.
verses, I think Anthony Hamilton took that hands down.
Oh yeah, without question, no doubt. Favorite movie, favorite movie genre.
Favorite movie genre, rom coms. So I'm a big romantic comedy fanatic. Actually, my son and I were talking about that yesterday because he was like, we were talking about something, and he was like, he's like, I think, because it was like a romantic drama. It was like a movie was being announced on like YouTube, and it was like romantic drama, and he was like, I don't really like romantic drama. He's like, I like rom coms. So it was funny to hear my 13-year-old talking about rom coms. But
That
yeah,
is
that's
funny.
yeah.
That is quite funny. Rom coms are good. I love a good rom com. That's
Yeah, we're a big Adam Sandler and like Seth Rogen fan. Like any
oh
movie that
yeah,
they're in, they're hilarious.
absolutely. I'm with you on that. 1,000. That's what's up. Okay. Favorite meal you like to cook?
Anything with chicken, to be honest. Somebody told me that asked me the other day, like, oh, what do you like to eat? And I'm like, chicken. So anything chicken, but like I love pasta. I love pasta chicken, like pesto chicken pasta. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, Patty, we're gonna have to get acquainted because chicken's real good. Chicken and pasta's real good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love me some chicken too, fried,
Yeah, and
baked
seafood,
or grilled.
especially here in Maryland, seafood, like any seafood is really good. I love seafood.
Absolutely, that's what's up. I like it. Favorite place you ever visited?
I haven't been many places outside of the United States, but I just had the opportunity to visit Puerto Rico for the first time. So I got to visit um, just like Canada and Mexico are probably the only places, and it's funny because Puerto Rico is still part of the U.S., but it feels like very international because you go there and it's like it's it's like a completely different vibe. You feel like you're in a whole nother country, but in reality it's an extension of the United States. But it was awesome. We had a great time. That was my first time going there, and so I'm hoping to go there again, or like the Dominican Republic. I want to get my stamps going on my passport. But
I feel it. Okay, I
yeah,
like
Puerto
that.
Rico I think is right now on the top of my list.
That sounds good. I love that. I really do. Okay. Last of the favorites. Favorite alcoholic drink?
Old fashioned,
Oh,
or Manhattan. I like whiskey and bourbon.
mm, can't go wrong with that. I'm a Hennessy guy. That's for sure. That's me.
Yeah.
But I also like a little bit of vodka and cranberry juice too. But it got to be ocean spray cranberry. Can't be none of that other stuff. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. I like that. I want to talk to you about being in the professional field and dealing with work-life balance and mental health.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's more prevalent nowadays. People are talking about it. Back in the day, they wasn't talking about it because they thought it was soft to kind of talk about stuff
Hmm.
like that. But now, athletes talk about it every day. People talk about it, and you're an AD, so it's like you overall these teams. You have a lot of different athletes, of men and women, but you also have, like you said, a son that's a teenager now.
Yeah.
Teenager, something, that's for sure. And then, but you also have family as well, and you also are a sociable person. There's no doubt about that. So, how do you balance the work life, social life, but also still maintain good mental health? Because you need some patty time too.
Yeah, it's big, especially right now. Like I'm going through like a little shock because being an athletic director, you think, oh, I'm not coaching anymore, I'll have a little bit more time to myself. But in reality, like we're at every sport, so like there's no off season. If you coach basketball, like okay, basketball, and then you have the off season where you recruit and you're here and there. But
Right.
with being an athletic director, it's like every day there's a baseball game, softball game, lacrosse, and
Yeah.
so I have a very supportive athletic director that, I remind him at times that like, hey, I do have a son at home. I need to go cook dinner. I'm going to leave a little early today since we don't have any games, or I'm going to come in a little later because we're going to stay late. Or like if we work on the weekends, it's just things like that like, it's very important to communicate those needs, and a lot of times I know that like I've been a workhorse in a sense of like, I'll just work, and I
Hmm.
don't and then I don't vocalize these struggles that I like, these internal struggles of like work life balance, and then I end up having like a sense of like animosity towards people because I feel like, oh hey, I'm here, I am working, and other people are taking time off, when in reality it's like I need to be assertive of my time off as well, and
Right.
so
Hmm.
now like if people call in sick and things like that, like I used to be like, oh man, they're calling in sick, like and I'm here working my butt off and I'm not sick, that used to be my mentality. Now I'm like, if I'm dying, I'm staying home, but
Right.
whereas before, like it'd be like, you got to push through, and like you said, it used to be a stigma where unless you're dying, like you should be able to produce, you should be able to be productive. And that's not the case. That's definitely not the case. And it really takes a wear and tear on the body and the mental, and it's important to be able to say, hey, I'm emotionally and mentally exhausted. I need a day off. I was talking to a coach friend recently who, someone we know was let go because one of the players, I guess they played like 14 days straight, and then one of the coach gave him like a day off, and one of the players was like, "Yo, I'm gonna need another day off. Like I need one more day at least because like we just played 14 days straight, or practice or whatever. I need another like a mental health day." And the coach was
Right.
like, "No." The coach was like, "No." So then the player went and told the athletic director, and they ended up getting rid of the coach. But it's one of those things where it's like, we talk about the physical aspect of the game and how you practice and exercise the physical, but it's like and recover, you do ice baths, you do stretching, you do that. But what about the mental side? Like what are some things that we need to do, not even just athletes but people in the workforce, like
Right.
that they have to do to be able to be mentally productive? And so it's like I feel myself, you know exhausted, like I'll sleep in an extra hour and then I'll just come in an hour later, but because I'm going to end up staying late anyway. So it's just things like that like it's important to be able to identify and acknowledge. But it's hard. It's hard because a lot of times for me, like I'm my biggest critic. And so like when I came in, like I told you, I've only been here about 2 months. And so my first like 3 weeks was like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., every day.
Wow.
Like I was working. And then it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm putting up false expectations of what they're going to think that this is going to be me on a regular basis. And it's not. So I have to make sure that like I do things that are reasonable, and like realistic. And it's not realistic that I'll be here 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. So now like I'll
Right.
come in at I'll come in at 9, and if we're staying here, like yesterday we were here until 7 because of our baseball game. So I'll take a an hour break in between or whatever, go pick up my son, things like that. So it's just important to be able to acknowledge when you need a mental break and when you
Right.
need to take a step back and like regroup and say, okay, hey, I know we have games the next 4 days, but then we have 2 days with no games. Like I'm gonna come in later, I'm gonna leave later or whatever, And so those are things that like it's important to vocalize. But yeah, it took me a while to be able to acknowledge them, even for myself. Like even though I'm in the mental health field, um, being able to acknowledge them, because I grew up, in a Hispanic household, and I'm sure, like in a minority household, like if you're struggling mentally, like they'll be like, oh, suck it up, you're fine, or like you'll get over it, or go
Yes.
work out or go do something else to like feel productive. And it's really one of those things that's like, no. So now that I feel like I've established myself in my career, now I'm going to start seeking out therapy and things like that, because I've never actually gone to therapy. And so that's something that like I would love to do, to be able to advocate for it even more.
Now, I love that answer. I really do. It's a very important question to ask. Especially with people that's getting into, all kind of different communicative sport roles or even jobs. When you start in the business, you're in prove-it mode, right? You want to prove that you can do the job. You want to prove that you were the right candidate.
Right.
And you want to be able to, say yes, yes, yes all the time. And you want to be able to work as many hours as you possibly can to prove that you're reliable. Now, like you said, as a person that's established, like yourself, now you got to try to find little, windows. Be like, hey, I'm willing to work, but you know what? Maybe we can lighten the load this day because we don't have as much going on. And you can be more comfortable speaking out, because that's the main thing. The main problem is people are not comfortable speaking out because they don't want to speak against their boss or, the hierarchy. And then when you don't speak that, then you internalize everything. Then, you start having those breakdowns mentally. I know personally for me, I like to work out. I like to write poetry. I also like to just, go on hikes and trails and just do little stuff like that to kind of separate myself, because I don't want to have these sports all the damn time. I mean, that's, sometimes it's cool to talk about a different genre every now and then. You know what I mean? So I totally love your answer, because you being a mother and having a son, you don't want to give that false narrative of, listen, I'm going to be here 12 hours a day working hard for y'all, giving everything that I got, when you got other priorities going on. And it's great that you have a hierarchy that understands that, because sometimes people don't have bosses that understand that.
Right.
Then you got to make real business decisions, because it's like, okay, if he or she not going to understand that all they care about is the bottom line, and they don't care about my individual, each individual that works here, well, I don't know if this is going to be the place for me. And once again, you just got to make that decision. But it's pretty cool. I like that answer. That's what's up.
Thank you.
No, you doubt, no doubt. I want to do this or that with you. And this or that is, I'm going to throw two things at you, and you just choose one or the other, okay?
All right.
All right, here we go. Drive-ins or movie theaters?
One more time.
Drive-ins or movie theaters?
Movie theaters.
Okay, gotcha.
With the reclining seats, though.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that, yo. Got to be the reclining seats, right? Okay, gotcha. Popeyes or KFC?
I don't really go to either. I guess KFC. My dad likes KFC. My son likes Popeyes, so I'm in between either one. Oh, my light went off.
It did. You good. I'm a Popeyes guy, so I'm with your son all the way. You know what I'm saying? It's me. Okay. MJ or LeBron?
Ooh. That's a tough one because I grew up on LeBron. Well, I grew up on MJ, but when I really got into basketball, I got to learn about LeBron. So, but I'm a big Michael Jordan fan. So I think I don't think I have to go with the GOAT. So with Michael Jordan.
All right.
But LeBron is definitely up there, my top three.
Oh, there's no question. No question. I love LeBron, but I would choose MJ as well. Yeah. Okay, I like it. Peyton Manning or Tom Brady?
I'm not a big football person, but my sister is a big Tom Brady fan, and I know he's the GOAT when it comes to football. Her husband is Cape Verdean and from Rhode Island, and they're big Patriots fans. So he'd kill me if I said otherwise.
Okay, going with the GOAT, Tom Brady. All right, here we go. Wacky sports: badminton or bowling?
Why are they wacky sports? I think they're both awesome. I feel like I'm not very good at either one, but I would go bowling more than I play badminton.
Okay.
So bowling.
the wacky sports is, badminton. Obviously, you playing with a birdie, and
Yeah.
it's just different because you outside playing with a net. It has a feel of a volleyball, tennis kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then bowling, well, bowling you can put bumpers on, which is kind of wacky.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a great bowler either, but some people play with bumpers, some people don't. So
Yeah. I remember we used to get so mad when badminton was in the gym and we wanted to go shoot basketball and they were in there.
Yeah. Tell me about it. You right about that. I got a few more. Okay,
Okay.
this is chicken wing flavors. Okay, barbecue or lemon pepper,
Lemon pepper.
dry or wet.
For lemon pepper,
Mm-hmm.
dry.
Bone in or boneless.
Bone in.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I like that. Puerto Rico or California.
To visit or live or what? But there's levels to it. There's levels
to go
to it.
to visit. I would say.
Puerto Rico for sure.
Okay, Puerto Rico for sure. Okay, gotcha. Baseball or softball.
Mm. I just had my first baseball game like as an admin, and it was very long. I have my first softball game today, so I can't really speak on softball, but I'm gonna go with the ladies. I'll say softball.
Okay. Yeah, baseball. If you ain't like eating
That's
something,
how I
or
felt. Like I was like, I feel like we need concessions. Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's a long game. Like, and are you out there in Baltimore? So you got the best of both worlds. You got the Nationals and you got the Orioles that you can go
yeah.
to as far as professional games. So
And Philly. I'm like,
oh,
I'm like an hour from Philly, an hour from DC.
oh wow, so you got the Phillies too. Okay, that's what's
Yeah.
up. All right. Here's the last one. This is R&B singers. Which one would you rather have? Would you rather have Brandy or Monica?
Monica.
You was very good. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
That was the fastest answer you gave.
She's actually coming out here. I think next week or next weekend she'll be out here performing. So might have to check it out.
You might have to. Okay, I like that. All right, these next two questions are going to be top four questions.
Okay.
And the first top four question is out there in Baltimore. Now I have been there once. Y'all got a lot of 7-Elevens, that's for sure. And then I went to Silver Springs as well, Silver Springs, Maryland. But I want to know what is 4 events or things I should do the next time I touch down in Baltimore.
Definitely be in Inner Harbor, which is the like downtown Baltimore. So you have the water, and you can go like you can go paddle boarding or like ride. They have these dragons that you can ride. So they're like pedal boats, but they're shaped like dragons. That's one thing I would do. There's this one hotel venue that on Mondays they have like salsa night, or Fridays they have like salsa Latino night. So we went there one Friday, and like they do dance lessons.
Right.
And so it'll be like an hour of dance lessons, and then the rest of the night you get to dance to Latin music. Got to try out the food. There's different areas here. So you have like Federal Hill, and then you have Fells Point and Canton. And so those are like the little pods of like bars and bars, dive bars and like restaurants. So like you can go bar hopping at these. And then there's this awesome flea market, Baltimore flea market. And it's a flea market inside of an abandoned church. And so like they set up like a thrift store style inside an abandoned church. So they do that. And then that's more than 4, right? Yeah. And then Patterson Park is like one of my favorites. It's like our Central Park. So it's like in the middle of Baltimore, and it has like lakes, and it has like historic buildings, and it's right smack in the middle. And there's like this really good ice cream place right by it. So there's a lot to do. And it's crazy because when I first moved here, like people were like, but it was COVID, so you couldn't do too much. And then like you said, you like hiking, so there's like so many hike trails that I've been able to go to with like a bunch of waterfalls and rivers, and so Yeah, there's a
Okay.
lot to do.
Okay. Now that's what's up. I'm definitely gonna take that in mind. I like the ice cream. I like that. Uh, I do like the salsa dancing.
Yeah, there's
I
actually
definitely
another restaurant called Sandlot that on Monday nights they do like salsa night.
okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
been to that one, but everybody keeps telling me about it.
I know I got some good. I got some good moves. I know that. So yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice to get to. Listen, when I do touch down in Baltimore, I gotta hit you up. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll show you around.
Yes, indeed. The next top four question that I have for you is about you. What top four things that you want to do in an already established career of coaching, and now you're an admin? But what is top four things that you would still like to do in your career, if there is, or four things that you've already done? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Four things that I would like to do. The ultimate goal is to either be a like a big university athletic director. So ideally, a big university in the sense of like a 4 year, but not a popular one. So like I wouldn't want to
Oh,
be at
okay.
like UConn or anything like that. But like
Okay.
I'd totally be down with being like at Morgan State or just other like smaller D1 schools. Or being in like the executive offices of the NBA. So that's one of the things. Like, and I feel like the way my career is going, it could lean either way. Another thing too, I want to continue to build my nonprofit, and be able to be more impactful with my nonprofit and take it international. So we already have done camps in Mexico, but we want
Okay.
to do camps. So we have the potential of doing a camp in Kosovo, which is like out in well, right now with everything going on, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's
Right.
out in that area. And so just trying to be as impactful as I can while I'm on this earth, and then make sure that my son is proud to have me as his mother. But that's pretty much it. Like there's not much that like I don't really, if it was like personal, I don't know. I don't think I want to have any more kids, and I don't know if I'm like trying to get married. So on a personal level, that's not any of the goals. I'm very career driven, so
I like that.
it's a gift and a curse for sure, because it
Yes.
a lot of the other things take the back burner. So, but yeah, I feel like I'm barely getting started. I know a lot of people say, oh, by your 30s, like you're really established and you already know what you're gonna do, and it's really like I feel like I'm hitting like my second lifespan, where it's like
Absolutely.
my first life I was a coach, and that was, I mean, it's still progressing into this one, but it was like I was a coach, and now I get to revamp my life and like start something new. And so now I'm an athletic admin. So I feel like there's so much more untapped potential that I have. So
No, absolutely. Love that answer. I really do. Perception is not always reality. That's in my mindset, and I'm sure in your mindset as well. You are a grinder. You're a hard worker. I'm sure your son is
thank
very
you.
proud of you, no doubt, with all the accomplishments that you have and what you're going to accomplish. But yeah, I love that answer. Building nonprofits is always great. Obviously, you have a great heart uh, to be able to do that, to give. Um, so yeah, I really, really do appreciate that. I appreciate what you said. Two more questions. This
Okay.
next question has to do with you being the associate athletic director there at Hartford Community College, but also being the Washington Wizards junior coach, if I'm not mistaken, you do that as well.
Yeah.
I would like to know on both occupations, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, with the Wizards, it's really more so like on call. So I'm a contract employee for them. So whenever we do have camps, they'll like send out an email at the beginning of the month, and they'll say, hey, we're running these camps. Like, which ones can you be a part of? So I don't really do a lot of day-to-day stuff with them until the camp. So like when we have the camp, then we have a coaches meeting and all that. But as far as like behind the scenes, I don't really do much, again, because I'm a contract employee.
Right.
With Hartford, it just depends. Every day is different. Like sometimes I'll have meetings all morning and then games in the evening. Sometimes we don't really do much all morning, or we do paperwork and then we have games. And sometimes we don't have any games, so then it's a lot slower of a day. But It just depends, honestly. Like, and that's what I like about it is like, and there no 2 days are alike. No 2 days are alike. Like today, yesterday we had baseball. Today we have softball, and then this weekend we have games as well. So, yeah. So it just depends on the day. I could sit here for 8 hours and do paperwork and fill out forms and submit requests and things like that, or I could be outside all day with a camp or a sport.
So, obviously working in college, yeah, it's year round, or it's pretty much year round. And then when it gets to June and July, you kind of just like, you kind of, take a deep breath because now the game stops, at least for a couple of months. What do you do during those 2 months?
We don't stop because we have baseball. So baseball and softball and lacrosse go all the way through like mid-June. And then in the summer, we start all the like summer workouts and stuff like that. So like I get to be here through those. One of the things that I do during the summer though is like we do our basketball camp. So like that's kind of my way to decompress and really just I'm still working. So people are like, how are you? It's not rest if you're still working. I'm like, I'm still working but it doesn't feel like work because I'm running these camps. So so like this year we have a camp scheduled in Mexico. I'm going to do like a 4-day camp in Mexico. Then we have a camp in San Diego, and then we have a camp in Detroit. So we'll be in Detroit. So it's just really wherever like we connect with other organizations that want us to come in and do these camps. So.
Or whenever you out here in Minnesota, you definitely want to hit me up for sure.
Yeah. You gotta connect me with some people. We'll come out there.
Oh, no doubt I will. Last question is about advice. What advice has been advocated to you, or you have given to someone about being in this industry? Whether it's coaching, whether it's in an admin role. What advice would you give, or has someone given you?
The best advice that I have received is don't attach yourself to a title. Like, don't attach yourself to a title, a place, or a position. Attach your motives to a purpose. So, like, the more you're attached to your purpose, the less it'll bother you if you get let go from a certain position or if like there's transition. For me, like I used to put so much emphasis on the title of a coach that when I wasn't coaching, I was like, oh my God, like what am I going to do with my life? When in reality, I was still being a coach. I just wasn't at an institution, and so now I'm still Coach Patty, but my purpose is aligned with me and my passion, and not I could be at Harvard or I could be at Morgan State or I could be at Bowie, wherever I could be at, and my purpose would be the same. And so I think for me that was a rude awakening because I started to realize like there were times where like I would suffer that imposter syndrome and I would walk into rooms and I'm just like, oh shoot, like am I supposed to be here? But then in reality, it's like, no, you are supposed to be here because it's your purpose, it's your path. And so the more you become in tune with your purpose, with your passion, with your why, the less of an imposter you feel in the field because you're like, yo, I deserve to be here. I know what I'm doing here. I know what I bring to the table, and what I bring to the table, nobody else can duplicate. So there's no imposter syndrome, and the more you become securing that and securing what like God has for you, then you're not going to be jealous or envious or feel some type of way when other people get opportunities because what's for you is already for you and it's already written. So you don't really feel bad about any of those things. And so that's one thing that I learned late in the game. I wish I would have learned it when I was younger, but it's something that I learned later that it has really helped me. Like even with this position, like part of me was like, oh, I'm not ready. And I had friends that were like, yo, like you're more than ready. You're more than ready. You're going to bring a different energy. You're going to bring a different, perspective to that job. So you're more than ready. So I think that would be the number one piece of advice that I would give someone is don't attach your purpose to a place, organization, or a title. Attach it to like the ultimate goal, the ultimate goal and your passion.
I love it. Experience is the best teacher, right? That's what they say. And that's a lot of truth to that, There's no manual for a lot of this stuff. You can't just open a book and read, step one, step two. A lot of this stuff we got to learn on the fly, and then acquire this knowledge, this information, and then implement it into our lives. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't attach yourself to a title, but go for your purpose and go for your goals. And
Yep.
that's like that. I'm following you on Instagram. I'm following you on Facebook. If you have a Twitter, I'll follow you there too because
Yep.
and I'm also following you on LinkedIn as well. Obviously, those are the main multimedia platforms I use to connect with people, talk with people, keep in touch with people,
Yeah.
let them know about the content. I like what we talked about today, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Learn more about you, and it was great. It was awesome. You're amazing.
Thank you.
10. Cannot say that enough. As I end all of my podcasts like this, is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude?
I want to be a resource for anyone that listens to this podcast. If they would like to reach out, and I'm big on mentorship, so I haven't gotten to where I am by myself. It has a lot to do with the people that I surround myself with and the people that I network with and that I connect with. And so if I can be of service to anyone, that's listening or watching or whatever the circumstance might be, they can always reach out to me on any of the platforms and, shoot me an email or even a DM. That's how we got acquainted, is just like connecting and going from there. So I love connecting with people, especially women in athletics. And so if I can be of help, feel free to reach out.
I love it. Say less. Well, you take care. I know you got a busy day ahead of you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you for hopping on, and enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend. And we definitely will be in touch.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
No doubt. Take care.
All right. You too.